Good morning, church. Man, it's good to be back. This is my fourth and final week sharing a message with you. I've really enjoyed it. It's been an honor to share with you what's been on my heart and what's been going on with my walk with Jesus, and it's been a real pleasure to get your encouragement as I've been doing it. And so much of our life revolves around food. We all love food. This is a picture from not even a month ago at my mom's house. That's my brother, my older brother Dave, who has more hair than me somehow, and my 3 sons and my 2 nephews, and it's ice cream time. And my brother Dave volunteered one night to, I'll scoop the ice cream for the kids, and he scooped the most ginormous scoops of ice cream that he is now officially, right? He is officially the Wallingford family ice cream scooper. So if it's ice cream time at Graham's house, they don't come to me, they don't come to their parents, they go to Uncle Dave and say, hey, will you scoop us some ice cream? Because they'll get the most that way. And so food is everywhere in our culture. We celebrate with food and engagements or anniversaries or birthdays. We gather around the table to talk about the news or current events, or did you see that Australian break dancer and her wild, awesome moves? Or maybe your mom downloaded the latest game on her phone. We play games around the table. Alliances are forged and enemies are made. Kings are crowned. James is the king of Candyland. Whenever we enter the realm of Candyland, it is James who reigns supreme. So there's so much of our life that revolves around the table. We have fun around the table. We make great memories around the table. This is one of my favorite pictures of George. We'd been eating Italian food all week. We'd been eating pasta endlessly, and this was our final dinner, and that was pasta bolognese that George had had all week long, but it just so happens that this was the best one, and George was so happy. He said, this is the best. This is, when you know it's good, he says, this is delicious. And that he was so happy eating that bowl of bolognese. And so much of our life revolves around the table and around food. And God's aware of that. Roy, I'm glad you didn't preach on the Passover, because I'm preaching on the Passover. This is the Seder plate that they serve at the Passover feast. They still do this to this day. Our Jewish forefathers, they have this plate, and there's a lot of symbolism with this meal and food. That is a lamb shank bone that represents the lamb that was sacrificed on the first Passover in Egypt. Here is horseradish and romaine lettuce, which are the bitter herbs that reminds them of their bitter time in Egypt as slaves. Here's an egg that represents the circle of life and also the renewing of life. This is the carpus, which is leafy green. This is parsley. They usually use parsley. So Passover's in the springtime, and it reminds them when things start getting green, it reminds them that Passover's near. And then the last one is, it's called charoset. Charoset. Yeah, I just got really loud on that. And it's like an applesauce with apples and applesauce and nuts, and they usually use white wine, and it's like a paste, and it reminds them of the mortar that they spent 430 years laying bricks in Egypt. And so there's a lot of symbolism in Passover, and the Jewish culture has feasts throughout the year to celebrate and remind them of God, and Jesus was aware of that too. This is Leonardo da Vinci's depiction of the Last Supper, and it's Jesus and his 12 disciples gathered around a table. And Jesus came and he revolutionized, he changed the Passover feast to mean something new as Christians. You know, we don't have the Seder plate every Sunday. Here at MCC, we have the bread and the cup that represents Jesus' body and blood that was broken for us. And so it's evolved, but it's still part of our life. And Jesus came, the Son of Man came, he came to seek and save the lost. So the Son of Man is a reference to the book of Daniel. There's a lot of prophesying about the Messiah in the book of Daniel. It's referred to as the Son of Man. And Jesus uses this phrase twice in the book of Luke. He uses the phrase, the Son of Man came, twice. First in Luke 19, he says, the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. And the way he did it, he says in Luke 7, the Son of Man came eating and drinking. That picture of Jesus around a table with his disciples, it's how Jesus did his ministry. The book of Luke alone has over 50 references to food. The Lucan scholar, he wrote a book on Luke called Eating Your Way Through Luke's Gospel. Robert Karras says, Luke's Gospel, Jesus is either going to a meal, at a meal, or coming from a meal. Jesus did his work through hospitality and around a table. And as I was saying last week, so much of our culture is fighting against that. The hyperconnectivity we have on our phones, if you need a cup of sugar, you don't walk next door anymore. You just order it. You literally just order it on your app and they deliver it to your door. You don't even have to interact with anybody if you run out of sugar now, let alone walk next door and ask for a cup of sugar. So much of our culture is fighting against this idea of hospitality and being with one another. And we need to be in very intentional in making room for hospitality in our life, making room to create this culture of koinonia that we talked about last week. And so today I'm going to continue the slideshow and share with you 5 families who some of them you may know, some of you may not. None of them go to this church, and I did that intentionally so that you can figure out the hospitality practices on your own this fall. But I'm going to share with you 5 families who have had a profound impact on my life and how they showed me hospitality. And so we're going to talk about how to make room. First, we need to make room in your schedule. This is my buddy Greg. We've been good friends for years now, years and years, and he helped Chelsea and I move into our house. And he was there, but we've been friends since before the boys were born. And we were talking the other day, and I think we've been having lunch weekly, or we try to have lunch every Tuesday since 2015 for 9 years. And we've forged this because he shows up. Greg shows up for me. And when things are hard, he's there. When there's something to celebrate, he's there to celebrate with me. When things are boring and mundane, he's still there. He makes time. He is very intentional. When he's busy, when he could be doing whatever he wanted to be doing with his own life and hobbies, he's still there. He includes me. And that's what we really need to make sure that we do. We need to make time in our schedule to make sure we're with one another in person, not just sending memes on Instagram. The next thing that I learned from Greg is that we need to make room in our home. You'll notice that all of these photos that I'm going to be sharing with you are photos, with the exception of 1 or 2, just family photos. They're all photos taken in someone else's home. They're photos of my family in another person's home. And that's very intentional. There's something that happens when you go into someone's home or when you have someone in your own home. There's a level of vulnerability. It's like, well, here's my stack of mail. This is the kind of dish soap I use, and you can see how often I do the dishes. There might be some dirty dishes around. It's a vulnerable place. And there's actually something really profound that happened just within the past month. My friendship with Greg, like I said, we've been having lunch together for 9 years. His schedule changed. And we needed to adjust. And we're like, okay, let's start doing breakfast. We can do breakfast. So we started going to the Amish place on the highway, and we would consume like 1,500 calories in bacon and pancakes. And after the first couple times, we were like, this isn't good for us. And like, I don't know about you, I'm not much of a breakfast guy, and he's like, yeah, I do my own thing for breakfast. And he said, we both like coffee. Why don't we just have coffee together? We'll take turns. You come over to my house for coffee, I'll go over to your house for coffee. And this has literally started within the last couple of weeks. And I cannot tell you the profound change that has happened with our weekly lunches now that they are coffees in our home. What we are able to talk about, the nature of our conversation. There are things you just can't talk about at the taco shop or in Starbucks or at Queen City when there are people around. We found ourselves just naturally talking about our marriages, our kids, our struggles, our walk with Christ. These are things that you're not comfortable talking about in public when there's someone 4 feet away from you and you don't know who they are. Being in your home opens you up to a new level of conversation, and it encourages you to get deeper into that moment, into that fellowship of koinonia that we're all after. We also need to make room at your table. Luke 10, 38 through 42. Let me pull it up here. It's the story of Martha and Mary. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to Jesus and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve all by myself, all alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but only one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." Make room at your table. So these are the halls. This is the best picture I could get. This is a very poor attempt at a selfie and group photo that David Hall took. David Hall is a former elder here, and his wife Suzette is the one here in the Santa hat. And they showed me how they made room at their table. And by that, I mean, when they hosted and they had people over, it was not overly complicated. It was delicious food. It was yummy, delicious food, but it was very casual and you felt welcome. At no point was I worried about my table manners and which side does my knife go on and which side does the fork go on. It was very casual and comfortable. I want you to imagine just a simple table, just a plate of food and a glass and some silverware. That's the kind of meal and experience that they would have. Because if you worry too much, if the more things you have on your table, the more formal it tends to get, the more glasses and the more knives and this spoon up here. Have you ever been at one of those meals? It's not, it's a little tense. It's a little not as casual and, hospitable, if you will. It's a little more nerve-wracking. And so they showed me how to make room at their table, and they didn't worry about the little things. They didn't worry about the piles of mail. They had a beautiful home, and they were neat and tidy. But it's the idea that if we spend too much time focusing on entertaining, then we lose out on hospitality. Hospitality is not entertaining. It's just sharing what you have. And in doing so, in simplifying and making more casual your table, it allows you to make room for compassionate conversation. Galatians 6, 1 and 2. "Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." The Halls had this special way of asking questions. The most memorable question that they would ask, David would say, "Where is your red dot?" And what he meant by that is if you've ever been to a mall or a zoo and you walk up to the map of the whole place and there's a big red dot that says, "You are here," you know, it's the idea of like, okay, in the whole map of your world, where is your red dot? And it was this powerful question that Chelsea and I still ask whenever we have time alone together. Where's your red dot? That just gets you talking about, well, here's where I'm at in my career, and this is what's going on with my goals, and this is where I'm at in my marriage and as a parent, and this is where my walk with Jesus is. It brings forth the rich, important things in life that allow you, that encourages you to get into the one another's. You know, it allows these conversations so that we know how to pray for one another, how we need to be encouraged, how to build one another up, comfort one another, and do all of these things because of these compassionate conversations. And I want to point something out. Galatians 6, that passage, when it says bear one another's burdens, it's not referencing your hard times. It's not referencing your current struggles and what difficulties we're going through in life. We should encourage and help each other out there. What this is talking about is our sins. If anyone is caught in a transgression. In James 5, we're supposed to be confessing our sins to one another. And that's what bearing each other's burdens means. We carry our sins together. Let me help you with the struggle that you're having with your sin. That's what it literally means. And in doing so, you do it with a spirit of gentleness. If anyone is, I want to say, if anyone confesses a sin to you, you need to do it in a spirit of gentleness. If anyone is living in sin, a lifestyle of sin that you know, you need to accept them with a spirit of gentleness. There is a difference between acceptance and approval. Look at the stories of Jesus when he encountered the woman at the well, the woman caught in adultery, the tax collectors. These are people living in open sin. And he accepted them and loved them. He did not approve of their sin, but he still accepted them and loved them. And we need to do the same. When someone opens up to you about their struggles and their burdens, you accept them with love and compassion, and you encourage them, and you try to help them build and climb their way out of that. So we need to make room for compassionate conversation. We also need to make room to share your blessings. Genesis 12, 1 through 3. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. And I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and to him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. I will bless you so that you will be a blessing." These are the Willinghams. You might know Randy and Eva. Randy's preached here many times. Way back in the day, he was the full-time preacher here, like back in the 90s. And when he left for Harding University, his first semester as a professor was my first semester as a student. And he took me under his wing, and we had this professor-student mentorship relationship. And then I started dating Chelsea, who he knew, and he knew the family very well. And he was like, I didn't know this, but said, I got to know this guy a little bit better, if he's going to be dating Chelsea. I didn't know that was the intent, but he started inviting Chelsea and I over to dinner once a week. And it's hard for me to express to you the impact it had on me. I was a college student, hundreds and hundreds, maybe 1,000 miles away from home. And my life was cooking meals in my microwave, in my George Foreman grill, eating at my desk in my dorm room, in the cafeteria, driving through fast food or eating in my car. The simple blessing of sitting at a dining room table and eating a meal cooked in a kitchen with love was such a huge blessing for me. It made me feel at home, and it made me feel at peace. It was just a dining room table. And we need to think about our homes, not necessarily as a blessing for ourselves, but maybe that it's meant to be a blessing for others. Maybe there's someone you know having troubles with their troubled child, and your home can be a peaceful, quiet place away from their home. Maybe you know a caretaker who is weighed down with the burden of taking care of their loved one, and your home could be a place for rest and rejuvenation and encouragement. Your home of peace and what you take for granted as just something normal might be an environment of peace amidst a life and a home life full of chaos and turmoil. Your home, the simple things that you might just take for granted, could be a tremendous blessing, and you just have no idea. As simple as a dining room table. We also need to make room for our witness. Philippians 3:17, brothers, join in imitating me and keep your eyes on those who walk according to the example you have in us. These are the Bennetts. A good friend of mine, Gabe, his wife, Lori, their 3 kids, Scarlett, Henry, and Edison. Gabe and I became friends at Harding. I hunt today because of Gabe. I'm a Yankee City boy who never been in the outdoors much, and Gabe's the one that is responsible for my crazy obsession hunting now. And when Chelsea and I were newly married, we were married when we lived in, I can't look at Chelsea too much during this sermon, I'll break down. We were married in California. I had good friends, but we had no Christian fellowship. We had no Christian friends. And we moved to Kansas City. We had no community there. And we moved to back here, and I knew no one. And Gabe, he would invite us to Arkansas, where he lived, and we would spend a weekend with him. And we would just talk about life. We were friends. We wouldn't talk about our faith. We might talk about church, but we would just talk about whatever. We would just spend a weekend together. But in those moments, Chelsea and I were able to see how peers, how fellow Christians treat each other, how a 20-something-year-old husband should treat his 20-something-year-old wife. It's one thing when you see someone who's been married 25, 30 years treat each other in a certain way. You think, well, yeah, but that's not me. But when you see someone your age doing it, love his wife, and you see Lori respect and honor her husband, they were just living. They were just living their life in front of us. And it was something Chelsea and I had never seen. And this kind of witness, it cannot happen at church. It can't happen here. I'm sorry. When we all come here, we all got our collared shirts on, except for Caesar. Sorry, I had to call you out, buddy. No, I love Caesar. But we're all on our best behavior at church. We're all coming here, doing our best, and we're all like good people at church, right? You know, we can't witness to people on how to live day to day as a Christian just in this building. It's not possible. If you talk to any missionary who's worked in the field working with Muslims, they will believe in Jesus. They will say, yes, Jesus is the Son of God. He's my Savior, but I am not ready to commit my life to him. I have no idea what that looks like. And there's books written on this. That these Muslims will not come to Christ until you show them what life is like with Christ. and it's not even talking about Jesus to them. It's just living as a Christian in front of them. It is powerful, and it is essential, and it cannot happen in this building. We need to make time and room in our routine. 1 Corinthians 19 through 23. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews, I became as a Jew, in order to win Jews. To those under the law, I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law, I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. To the weak, I became weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. Whenever I'm talking to my kids or friends' kids, I tell them successful people are able to adapt. In business, you need to be able to adapt to new regulations and new opportunities. As a teacher or a nurse, you need to adapt to the new regulations being handed down on you, the new best practices. We constantly need to be able to adapt, and that it's no different in our life with Christ. We need to be able to adapt to our modern lifestyle. And the Irwins here, Nathan and Anna, they were so adaptable. They impressed me from very early on about how they were able to adapt koinonia into their life. When we first moved here, like I said, we had no friends. I had no friends. Chelsea grew up here. I was a stranger, but everybody knew me because that's what happens when you live from out of town and you married a girl who's lived her whole life here. Everybody knows who you are. You don't know anybody. But they would invite us over, and they had just adopted Isaac. He was about your son's age, and we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? You know, we'd go over, we'd have dinner, and then we would do bedtime routine with them, and then we put them to bed together, and then we play cards, and they were like, all right, great, you know, this is great, and I will say it was awkward at first. Nathan's a big baseball guy. I, am not. And so we had to there were slow, awkward moments where we just had to sit in awkward silence as we got to know each other. But then they said, okay, next time at your house. We're like, okay, how? They're like, oh, no problem. We'll bring Isaac's pajamas. And so they would come over, we'd have dinner. We would do his bedtime routine at our house. We would put him down in our guest room, and we would go play cards. And we would get to know each other, and then they would pick him up and take him home. They adapted to their current situation, whatever life place they were in, and just to make it work. They made it work. Was it perfect? No, but it worked. And a beautiful friendship and wonderful life was shared together, even though they were putting their child down in their friend's house. And even in a connection group, they would drive out to Morris, and they would put their kids in their pajamas and put them to bed literally in their car seats. Because the 45-minute drive back, they knew they would fall asleep. And so when they got home, they'd take them out and put them to bed. That's how important it was to them. They made it work. They just made it happen. We need to make room in our routine. And finally, we need to make room to honor your guests. 1 John 2:15 through 17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in them. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. I forget what I was doing. I don't know if I'd broken a glass or if I'd left a ring stain on the end table at their house, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'll never forget the words Nathan said to me. This was very early on in our friendship. He said, there is nothing in this house that's more important than you, my friend. And that's how we need to welcome our guests. We cannot love our things more than we love our neighbor. We just can't. We can't let our possessions and our nice home and how much we love our things keep us from sharing them. If the greatest commands is to love God and to love our neighbor, we got to put everything else to the side. We got to put everything else, whatever things we might cherish on this earth cannot come before our neighbor. We need to, as Annie read, we need to love one another with brotherly affection and outdo one another in showing honor. And I'll be honest, this life of koinonia, of hospitality, is exhausting. I would love to tell you it's just fantastic. It's easy. It's the easiest thing you'll ever do. No, I mean, it's exhausting. If you've had people in your home, if you've ever hosted, it is exhausting. But as you, and I'm an introvert. I'm a natural introvert. I'm like always 50-50 on the Myers-Briggs, but I finally realized what was the tipping point was that whenever I get the invitation to go somewhere, to someone's home, or like we need to have someone over, my initial, like first, second knee-jerk reaction is like, nope, I'm too tired. No. And it's also after I spend time with people, I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. Chelsea, we'll spend time with people, and Chelsea's amped up. She's like, yeah, let's go. Let's keep doing this again. I'm like, I'm going to bed. But now, with the help of these people, these 5 families, and many people in this church, when I get an invitation to a home, I think, how do I make this happen? Let's go. Let's do it. I'll be tired at the end of the night, but it is so worth it. Whatever is keeping you from this life of koinonia, you've got to put that to the side because this is where the rich stuff in life happens. Make it happen. Make it work. Prioritize it. This table church that we're going to be doing this fall, I'm so excited about it. Please sign up. Sign up to host. And when you sign up to go to someone's house, don't bail at the last second. Make it a priority. Say, we are going, even if, no matter what, we're going to make this happen. And so, this life, we need to make room for it. We need to make room for our loved ones. We need to make room in our schedule, in our homes, at our table. And this is where the rich things will happen in life. And if you would all please stand as I close. I would like to read a blessing over you all. It's a combined blessing. It's combined from 1 Thessalonians 3 and 2 Thessalonians 3. Now may the Lord make you increase and abound in love for one another and for everyone. And may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times in every way.